There we go.
We're recording, and
you could tell it's our first webinar.
It's awesome.
Can you guys still see me?
hold on one second.
Yep.
I need to share my screen.
I can't see the whole.
Yep, we can see you, Luke.
Okay, thanks. Because I only see one individual. Okay, I don't know what's going on here.
All right. Great job.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Can everybody see the
Excellent.
welcome sign? Okay. Here we go.
Look at that. All right. Well, we're going to get started. Good morning to all of you, and thank you so much for joining the IRA's very first webinar during the coronavirus. My name is Ron Taslar. I'm the president of the board of directors for the IRA. I represent the construction and demolition recycling industry. I have a few sites in the Chicagoland area, and we haul dumpsters throughout Chicago and then process the C&D material. Naturally, we come across a lot of electronics in the load, so this is a very good topic for me to be a part of, and we're just really grateful to all of you for being a part of it as well. And special thanks to all of the people who are members currently of the IRA. We can't tell you how much we appreciate it, and it gives us the ability to do the things that we love doing here, and that's promoting recycling and finding out new and better ways to do things and to collaborate with one another and to work through some of the issues. And there certainly are plenty of issues with recycling recently, and we are right on the forefront of that. So, Gloria, if you want to go to, I'm going to hit you all up if you're not a member right now. I want to give you guys some incentive to and some encouragement to join. It's something that we desperately need, and you know, we've got a great board who's very active and working on the behalf of Illinois recycling and as a whole. And we put together this top 10 reasons to join the IRA last year, and kind of this is something that we kind of go to when we talk to folks about joining. So I'll just go through this list here. I won't read all of it and put you all to sleep, but we are the voice of recycling in the state of Illinois, and we've been at it for almost 40 years now. And you know, recycling has not been easy with the last few years, but you know, we're right on top of what's going on. One of the other benefits of being a member is you get to put our new logo on your website, and you can show your customers and your vendors and folks that you know, you are a part of the association and that you're helping to make a difference in Illinois. Another thing that's we're involved in heavily is the legislation. We're keeping a watch on bills that will impact you or the industry, recycling industry as a whole. We've had lobbyists several times throughout the 40-year history, and we get behind and we spend money on making sure that recycling is promoted and that it's strong in Illinois. One of my favorite things about being a part of the Illinois Recycling Association is networking with peers. When we have, today as a prime example, we have 88 or 83 some people scheduled to be on here, although we're not necessarily networking together, but we can see each other's names. You're going to hear a lot of great speakers talk today, you know, the EPA to industry leaders in this space, and having those people available as a contact is priceless. Also, we get to be a complimentary membership to the National Recycling Coalition. Actually, one of our board members is Dave Keeling. He is the president of the NRC. So just a huge resource there for all things recycling. On our new website, if you haven't had a chance, I would go check that out. There's a really cool member-only section in there where you have access to all kinds of different people in this state in the recycling business. So we also send out a monthly newsletter. I'm sure most of you have gotten that, and that's probably why you're on this call today. But each month we spotlight a member, and maybe you'll be the next lucky member that gets spotlighted. It goes out to over 500 people, so that's a really great thing that we offer. But and if any of you want to become involved in any committee or any part of this, obviously you've shown interest by being on this call. We would love to have more people, more hands to help. Many hands make light work, right? So don't be afraid to reach out to any of us about that. And then again, the IRA website is a great tool to promote your organization and be seen out there. So as you can see, the list of membership fees is right there in front of you. Very, very inexpensive. And want you to become a member of the IRA. So thank you for listening to me sell you on that. And I hope you will listen and come and join our organization. At this point, I'm going to introduce to you probably someone that all of you, or most of you already know, but I call her the Will County rock star for recycling, better known as Marta Keene. She is the solid waste coordinator for Will County, and she will be the moderator for today's webinar. I've gotten to know Marta in the last year or so. We were lucky enough to have her come and join the board, and we're really, really happy. She's a wealth of knowledge and very committed and passionate about recycling. So without further ado, Marta.
Thanks, Ron. And good morning to everybody, and thank you for coming. If you're not already muted, we're asking everyone to please keep yourself muted during the meeting. If you have questions, please submit them in the chat. If you don't have the ability to submit in chat, you've joined by phone, you can send the questions to us at our email, and Gloria will try to keep tabs on those, or if necessary, maybe we'll send something out after the meeting to answer some. So this is being recorded, and it will be posted on the website for your future reference. So I'd like to start by introducing each of our speakers and letting them tell you a little bit about themselves. Our first is Luke Ficus, our Vice President of the IRA and President of MW Recyclers. And with that, Luke, would you like to introduce a little bit more about yourself and your company?
Sure. Thank you, Marta. First, I want to just talk a little bit about the IRA as well. This team is just an amazing team that I have an opportunity to be the vice president. I mean, Gloria, hands down, does just phenomenal job. Marta, Ron, John, whoever. I don't know who else is on the call because I don't see the whole screen, but I'm just amazed of what we do, how we do it, in pressure. And it's just amazing for everybody on the call. I mean, this is a part of an organization that is I'm completely honored to be a part of it in this team. So I just really wanted to emphasize that a little bit more from what Ron has, and for the wealth of knowledge on this team that I've learned, you know, gosh, it's amazing. So I thank everybody, and thank everybody for being on the call. So, but yes, I am Luke Ficus. I am the president of MW Recyclers. We are actually just pleasure to be in Will County and working with Marta as well. we moved to a 40,000 foot building here in Romeoville, Illinois, right off of Weber and Gaskin Drive. Just a phenomenal location right now, just settling in here. A couple things, what we do real quick is we are an IT asset recovery company. So I work with big corporations throughout the city of Chicago, we're actually nationwide. We're not just located here in Illinois. I go around the world and travel through different states to get equipment and refurbish it and recycle it as well. So again, just a little bit of that. I won't take too much time, but just in a nutshell, once we dive in some of these questions and more conversation, I could tell you a little bit more, but honored to be here, honored to be part of this group, and thank you for everybody to joining on this call. I'll send it back to you, Marta.
Oh, thank you. Gloria, did you want to flip through the slide? So I'm going to bring up Greg Grill next, and he is with ATN, a nonprofit organization. Greg, I believe, is just on and able to introduce us more about his many decades of being involved with electronic recycling.
Thank you, Marta. I did have a video. I lost my video, so I am audio only. But my name is Greg Grill, and I am with the Assistive Technology Exchange Network. Our refurbishing program is under the not-for-profit umbrella of United Cerebral Palsy Seguin of Greater Chicago. And it's a social service agency providing support to over 800 individuals with physical and intellectual challenges in over 90 residential homes throughout Chicago and the Collier counties. I'm not able to see my slides since I'm on the phone, but the next slide will just give you a little bit of information regarding the ATEN program. ATEN is funded by a grant from the Illinois State Board of Education to provide no-cost technology solutions to special education students in the 102 counties in Illinois. Since 1995, we have refurbished and given over 63,000 computer systems or devices serving thousands of Illinois students. The primary function is for us to receive and use computer equipment, modify, adapt the system for the specific needs of the student to access the general curriculum for related therapy, social networking, and now e-learning. The next slide would be a hard drive. All donations received as not-for-profit would be taken, removed, eradicated, degaussed, and then sent to the recycler for shredding, which is a guarantee that no proprietary information is floating around. We have student interns with disabilities that come to our site location to learn about technology, as well as the components and hopefully the refurbishing aspect of it. They assist on any collection events or donors that are received at the site facility here in Tinley Park. The final slide, 2 slides, will be in the same spirit of electronics recycling. The program also offers a durable medical equipment program. The DME program takes in donations of canes, walkers, wheelchairs, hospital beds, motorized scooters, and just an abundance of other adaptive equipment. People no longer need it. However, we take it in, review it, determine that it can be reused and resent free of charge to anyone with a permanent or temporary disability. That's a newer program that we've had, and to date, we've given over 1,200 pieces of equipment that were donated to us, and in turn, we were able to donate out. Thank you, Marta.
Oh, thank you, Greg. Appreciate that. And then I wanted to also introduce Jimmy Larkin from A-Team Recyclers, and who's also in Will County. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
You could share that.
Thank you for the opportunity to be a panelist today. My name is Jimmy Larkin. I'm one of the owners of A-Team Recyclers. We are a nationwide electronics device collector, recycler, refurbisher based in Shorewood, Illinois. We service all entity types, including businesses, universities, financial institutions, healthcare facilities, K through 12 schools, government entities, and residential program collections. We are currently registered with the IEPA for 2020 as a collector under CIRA for collections held in Will County, as well as Champaign, Grundy, and LaSalle counties in Illinois. A little bit about my background. I began my career in eScrap in 2007 as an operations manager. I managed remote facility implementation and oversight, commodity sales, environmental compliance, as well as business process improvement until 2015 when we formed A-Team Recyclers. Just a little background on our eScrap collections. We service remote collections in 6 cities throughout Will County, 1 to 2 times per month, as well as 1 permanent site collection twice per week for an average of 18 weekday collections per month. Prior to shelter-in-place orders for Illinois, A-Team was scheduled to provide collection for 17 Saturday collection events throughout 2020. Most of those have been postponed. We're going to go into a little bit further of impacts of COVID-19 on residential e-scrap collection. But as of today, we have continued servicing all weekday collections throughout Will County without interruption during the crisis. While we have seen significant we did see significant drops in turnout throughout April and the end of May for residents dropping off at collection sites. That has significantly changed in the past few weeks. And we're seeing actually record turnouts at all of our collections for the past about 3 weeks now. So we'll get later on in the call, we'll discuss more impacts of COVID-19, but I think that's good for now.
Thanks, Jimmy. So I would like to introduce Jessica Miller from the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency. She is an integral part of the residential recycling program and oversight of it. And our very first question for the panel is really just for Jessica to explain the law as it applies to the residential sector. And if you would take it away, Jessica, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. And thank you, Marta, for introducing me. So yes, we're just gonna go through, you could go to the next slide, please. Perfect. Okay, so here we're just gonna go through the evolution of electronics legislation here in Illinois. I created just this graphic so that we could kind of see it on a timeline. So back in 2008, the first electronics recycling legislation was passed, and this was in 2008. At this time, a lot of states were starting to pass e-waste legislation. It ended up being implemented in 2009, and not to get too much into it, but just basically, this was also a manufacturer-funded program. It was also based on a weight goal model, which means that a certain amount of e-waste had to be collected each year. Then in 2012, there was a disposal ban. So covered electronic devices ended up being prohibited from entering Illinois landfills. And then in 2018, CIRA was passed. That is the Consumer Electronics Recycling Act, and that is what we're all most familiar with today, is that's what it was implemented in 2019. This modernized a lot of elements of CIRA, and now instead of being based on a weight goal model, it is based on a convenience standard model. And to that end, EPRA did expire when CIRA was implemented in 2019. All right, and to give a brief overview of CIRA, I know most of you on here know about CIRA or are involved in it in some way, but it is the current legislation that governs electronics recycling in Illinois. There are 17 covered electronic devices. It is no longer based on a weight goal standard, but instead it focuses on a convenience standard, which is basically a focus on access. So collection locations and events may be used by residents of that county for the counties that do choose to opt into this program. The first year under CIRA was 2019. Under this model, manufacturers must support the CED collection locations in the counties that elect to participate in the program. So what does that support look like? Well, manufacturers have certain responsibilities to these opt-in counties, and that includes providing them with packaging materials, transportation of the e-waste, and also the recycling of the e-waste. And under this model, there are various actors under CIRA, and this requires all of these actors to work together in some type of capacity. So we have the manufacturers, which are the ones that produce and sell CEDs in the state of Illinois, the opt-in counties, and then we have the group plans. These group plans are assigned to counties and they can be described as managers. The group plans are also sometimes recyclers, but this is not always the case. Then we have collectors, which in most cases, the county does act as the collector, but again, this is not always the case and it can be a third party. For example, A-Team that Jimmy was speaking earlier, he is a collector for counties and would be described as a third party collector since it isn't the county. And then there are recyclers, which are assigned to the county. The recyclers are also designated in the plan and they are chosen by the manufacturers. Other info here is that the program is limited to residential CEDs. Commercial entities such as businesses should not be using CIRA sites or events, and that weight should not be counted under CIRA. Under CIRA, collectors and recyclers that are outside of the program are still able to operate outside of the program. However, that weight collected by collectors and recyclers outside of the program is not recorded through the agency and through the program. And then counties that, sorry, can you go back to one? Okay, and then counties that do not opt in are not covered under this program. And we get a lot of questions such as, well, what happens to counties that don't opt in? So there are some things that could be going on, such as counties that don't opt in, they may have their own collection sites and events that they hold outside of the program, or they may rely on retailers. The problem with relying too much on retailers is that they're not obligated to accept all CEDs. A big one being televisions. A lot of recyclers will not accept TVs. And then there are some counties that really have no options available, and to that end, they probably experience a lot of dumping, which may be a burden, economic burden to the county. All right, and this is the collection pound totals under CIRA in 2019. Jason Linnell with the Clearinghouse was awesome and synthesized all this data and sent it to us. And obviously, as you can see, TVs came in at 9.9 million pounds. Obviously, TVs are very abundant and they're very heavy. So that would account for a lot of weight. And then if you could go to the next slide here. And I just want to put together a slide excluding TV collection, just so that we could, the TV collection, you know, was overpowering in the last one. So I wanted us to be able to see these numbers. So the next one that comes in are printer, scanners, fax, computers and small scale servers, and computer peripherals are the next top three. Next slide, please. All right, so pounds collected from 2019 CIRA sites and events comes out to 14.7 million pounds, which is equal to 32 Statue of Liberties if you need to put it into a different perspective. All right, and then I did want to also show you guys total collection pounds for the opt-in programs and then the private networks. So under the Clearinghouse, some private networks such as Dell Reconnect, which partners with Goodwill, and some Best Buy Recycling, locations, they are listed as private networks, and they will report to the clearinghouse. And altogether, so we had 14.7 just about for the private networks and for the CIRA opt-in programs. And together that comes out to 29.5 million pounds. Again, keep in mind, this does not include non-opt-in counties, those who opted out, any municipal programs, or any other private programs that are not reported to the clearinghouse.
So thank you, Jessica. I hope that for anyone who is not familiar with the residential program, that you now feel that you're a little more versed in that. The EPA has some wonderful pages on their website where they offer information. If you get calls from residents and you do not do television sets, you certainly can refer them to the Illinois EPA for information. So I'm sorry, we just flipped through a bunch of slides and I don't have my next question for the full panel in front of me to read. So I apologize.
Are we asking Jessica to explain the 2010 electronics recycling law?
So that is what Jessica just did.
Okay.
And we appreciate that. So the next question then is actually for the business panelists. Since the inception of the law, how did they believe that electronics disposal has been, well, I guess this is also Jessica, so excuse me, sorry for that. All of you, if you would take turns in answering how you believe residents and businesses understand the law. And we really were trying to talk about the business section because there hasn't been a lot of seminars on that side of it. So if we could, I'd like to start with Luke and what you see as the understanding that you've heard from people calling you or from businesses that you've contact with, of their understanding of the Illinois law when it comes to what's banned and what they have to recycle.
Well, from the business aspect and the business side of who I deal with, from law firms to big corporations and all that, and working with big construction companies, especially in the city of Chicago, and them also, you know, ripping down floors and taking apart. What I've seen is a lot of businesses not caring. I'll be truthfully honest with you, and I'm taking care of that side of it because we go in, we'll take stuff even out of dumpsters that these big construction companies really don't have anything to do with, and all they do is dump. So we do actually, we've had few jobs that we've had guys literally in dumpsters picking it out of there. So from that aspect, it gets pretty serious, and I'm trying to stop that. I'm trying to educate business owners. Hey, listen, I'm out here to buy the stuff, and if you are going out of business, or if you're moving floors, or if you're doing this, let us come in and help you do those moves. We specialize in business corporate moves as well. So I'm trying to stop that, number one. Number two, work with them, educate them to see the really destruction they're doing is when they do dump it and don't care. So from a business aspect, from the residential side, as you know, Marta, we don't do a lot of the residential side. So again, the impact, though, we do get a lot of calls. So I would like to talk to somebody about that. We get calls after calls after calls, and it is basically mostly on televisions. You know, where can we do with the television? And I want to help them as best as I can, but the ability for us to do it is, I'm not going to just have it, you know, stack up in our warehouse. But the nice thing about us as well, and I won't bleed this, but we are on our third phase of our R2 process, where we will be, actually after this meeting, our consultant is coming in to do an inspection of our warehouse and help us get everything for our phase 3 done. So we will be able to talk to you more education about taking televisions here in the near future here. So, but I hope that answered the question in some aspect. Marty, you're on mute.
Sorry.
Oh, no.
Sorry about that.
You probably just didn't want to say, hey, Luke, you didn't answer the question correctly. That's okay though, Marta. We'll mute you on that one.
Thanks, Luke. No, that was a great answer to the question. It was very insightful, and I appreciate that very much. I was going to switch over to Greg next because he's been dealing with corporate donations and refurbishing and reuse issues. and then of course residential calls as well, I'm sure. So Greg, would you give your perspective?
Sure. I think regardless of how residents or businesses interpret the law, as a not-for-profit, people make donations to us with the hope that we can reuse obsolete technology. Back in the day, people donated items to a not-for-profit for a charitable contribution. Well, that doesn't seem to be it kind of went by the wayside now with people itemizing deductions. But they used us as an incentive. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to give it to you. You're going to be able to get it, repair it, fix it, and give it to someone that really kind of could use it. Well, unfortunately, that's not the case with a lot of items we receive in. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, Earth Day is a really important day to get information, saturate the market regarding all of the good things that need to be happening, and that kind of didn't receive the press that we were kind of hoping. It's, again, a great way to reintroduce what the law is, what the responsibilities are, not only for residents, but businesses as well. So hopefully, we'll be able to get a Think Green campaign out there and just kind of move Earth Day to a different time. But that's always a great opportunity just to remind people of how and what to do the right thing, because there are so many different options available for people for processing equipment.
Thanks, Greg. I appreciate
You're welcome.
that. And then I also wanted to ask Jimmy, if you could speak on A-Team's perspective as far as when you're going out working with businesses to help them with their needs, as well as the residential side, taking calls and any other issues you think are pertinent to this.
Okay. From the inception of the law, we find that everybody seems to understand the fact that there's a landfill ban. From any aspect of the business, everybody is aware of that. And everybody's mostly concerned with how that affects them. So in more rural areas where there's not a whole lot of recycling options, maybe 1 or 2 events a year, it becomes a problem for people when they don't have a readily available solution such as curbside pickup or a consistently open permanent site. From the business side of things, we see a little bit of what Luke had mentioned, to where when specifically like high cost items like TVs and monitors come into play, that businesses will forego recycling options even if they're readily available, for just hiding it in the trash.
All right, well, that's disappointing. And then I guess, Jessica, you're involved mainly in the residential side of it, but could you give your perspective on that? How do you feel from what you're hearing, that residents understand the law, where they can go to recycle?
Sure. So I kind of have the opposite problem of Luke, which is, or not problem, but I kind of have the opposite situation of Luke, is that I get way more residential than commercial questions. Commercial entities have reached out to me in the past, not too frequently, but we do refer them to responsible and reputable recyclers that we are aware of, and most of them are in the program plan. That will be who I refer them to. Obviously, those businesses have to pay to recycle those items. As far as residential understanding of the law, I do think that most people know that certain electronic devices are banned from disposal. But there is definitely a level of differing understanding, or maybe knowing, of access to recycling locations across the state. You will see that I feel like residents in Will County, Lake County, Kane County, DuPage County, that have a lot of e-waste information and they have a lot of good access, those residents are much more better understanding of the law. Obviously, those counties have the resources to be able to reach out more to their residents than, say, some residents of smaller counties that maybe they don't have an access point, or their county is not in under CIRA. So there definitely is some discrepancies across the state, I feel, in understanding, but again, that is linked to education and access.
And I'm sorry if we missed it. In 2019, how many of the 102 counties were actually active in the program with you, opted in?
Oh gosh, don't quote me for sure between 2019 and 2020, but I know it's around like 55 counties.
Okay.
It's remained pretty constant between 2019 and 2020. Obviously, we're going to see a huge drop off in weight for 2020 just due to COVID. But yeah, I think the counties have remained pretty much the same.
Okay. Gloria, can you switch to the next question? Thanks. So just a background is during the war with Iraq, metal prices were at record highs. Since the end of the war and the implementation that we all are well aware of, the Chinese sword policy, the value of metals and plastics plummeted. So I wanted to ask how this has impacted each of you, and we'll switch it up and start with Greg this time. If you could tell us how you felt that was an impact for you, that'd be great. And then I know you do a lot more reuse, but certainly you have to market some materials, I would imagine.
Sure. The effects are very notable with drop-off site closures, material limitations, plastic rejection rates up. Consumers, the education component of educating computers of what we'll take in and what we won't take in, it just fuel a more effective way of processing or refurbishing. A lot of the items we have that used to generate a revenue, depending on the commodity, obviously has, took a turn downward. So anything we're able to generate in revenue to put back into purchasing adaptive equipment to make the computer compatible for that student has been a challenge. And our funding is capped at a certain amount. So it's just been challenging, a lot of juggling with the noted change.
Interesting. So with that, Jimmy, would you like to take a hand at that one next?
Sure. With residential recycling, it's mostly comprised of almost entirely of end-of-life devices, with a very little percentage of reusable products. So revenue in residential programs is generated typically from one of four sources. The commodities accumulated from processing those devices, fees charged to the residents or local government entities hosting the program, manufacturer funding through state legislation when that exists, or refurbished product revenue. When the value of scrap devices and components was really high, recyclers had more revenue generated from recycling those devices and components and could offer more flexible options, more numerous options. So you saw a lot more collection programs out there because even small collection programs, due to the revenue generated from processing those devices, was able to cover the costs associated with those programs. Once the commodity values dropped, programs that were previously profitable were now upside down, and they had to be restructured or ended. I wouldn't say that impacted the business side of things nearly as much as the residential programs that I think all of us witnessed or were part of.
Okay. Well, good to know. So the businesses were able to absorb, I'm going to go with an additional cost. And in that vein, Luke, would you like to take your perspective on that?
Sure, great answers from Jimmy and Greg. I'm kind of like in the middle of this. I am a refurbisher. We're Microsoft certified. We, like I said, we're in the phase 3 of our certificate. So we're on both ends of the spectrum. Again, just from that aspect, like for what Greg said about, asset recovery and refurbishment of computers, that's where we live a lot of. And again, from that side, we just look at the metal prices. We just priced it out yesterday. It's $80 a ton right now, which is it's low because of what's going on too with COVID and stuff of that nature. As the market goes this way, this way, this way, you know, so it's kind of scary. Again, from this aspect, I'm more of that asset side. So Jimmy had a great answer on the residential side. That was fantastic. It's educating me as well. So again, but I do see it getting worse. That's the problem that we fare right now, especially at $80 a ton. That's the highest right now that I've gotten.
All right. Yeah. Well, good. Thank you for that information. And Jessica, I know you've dealt with this from hearing the various actors, as it were, involved in recycling. What's your perspective on this situation with the lower values?
Sure. As far as markets go, I really don't have too much experience with markets, and especially at the agency, that's not really something that I deal with a lot, but I do know that it has impacted, and as we heard from Jimmy and such, that there are some issues as far as this, but as far as markets go, I can't really speak to the impacts.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Gloria, would you switch to our next question? And I want to encourage everybody, if there's anything that you feel isn't getting exactly what you wanted in the way of information, please use the chat box and ask additional questions, and we will be getting to those at the end. So this was really more for the business and the nonprofit recyclers that we have on our line, or on our panel. So the non-television monitor items, are they paying for themselves given the lower values of markets? Were they paying for themselves when market values were higher? And what types of items do businesses pay to recycle that you know is just because they're banned, or do they do items that aren't banned but they think that they should get recycled anyway? And I'll start with Jimmy on that.
Okay. As for businesses, well, there's a lot of responsibility on the recycler's part to educate business clients as well as residential clients on exactly what is an accepted device for processing, because sometimes it's not thought of. Because it's not a computer or a television or something like that, and it's just a random household device. Some people still consider not recycling it, so that comes down to us educating them on that. As for non-TV monitor electronic items paying for themselves, that's a yes and no. Yes, more so from the business sources than the residential sources. Residents have a much higher percentage of low quality plastic-based electronic devices. Businesses don't typically allocate funds, expense any have any expenses for like low quality stuff that you find around your house. So, you know, like while it's typical to find numerous low value plastic items such as kids' toys, high waste content items such as wood speaker cabinets, and low quality e-scrap devices such as coffee makers and residential recycling, business recycling tends to have a higher percentage of metal-based electronic devices and a much higher percentage of remarketable devices than you would see in the residential side.
Okay. And Luke, would you like to go next on this?
Sure. I'll start from the bottom. What types of items do businesses pay to recycle? No business wants to pay. I've experienced so many things where, like Jimmy said, it's about the education part. I have to educate every new business that, listen, this is what we're doing. So what we've kind of modeled is going in to do a asset recovery for them, saying, hey, what do you have? We'll do an audit on site to say, okay, well, we can refurbish this to cover the cost of this, because it's like pulling teeth to get dollars out of businesses because they got to go to this, the CIO and explain to them why, my God, we paid $3,000 for this server, but now I got to pay $2,000 to get rid of it. What's going on here? So it is really the education side, and that's what we do when we do our on-site audits at businesses and taking that to a perspective of saying, hey, listen, this is what we can pay for as well. They love to hear those figures of, oh, you're going to give me money for this? Well, wait a second, let me just step a few minutes and educate you first before you see the dollar sign that we're going to pay you for a Pentium 1 machine, right? I'm over exaggerating that a little bit, but but that's where I see from the business aspect. From the TV monitor, electronic, do they pay for themselves? Yes and no. I mean, from the refurbished side, we put new hard drives, we'll upgrade RAM. So and sometimes a lot of these businesses as well just want us to pick it up, give them our certificates that we have recycled it or refurbished it accordingly. So they do sometimes pay for themselves from the refurbished side. So I can't really speak from the nonprofit. I would imagine Greg could speak more of that, but that's how I see that.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And Greg, did you want to finish this one off?
I will. Mark, it's a good opportunity. I'm glad the IRA and the Illinois EPA websites have a lot of information and resources for people, where to go and when the drop-off locations are, because that's where I refer them. So if they're able to, so if we don't take TVs, we can just refer them to the appropriate locations, municipalities, direction, again, educating the consumer. They want to do the right thing. So as long as you kind of lead them down that path, so they can find out what they need to do the right thing, it'll be just a little bit easier for them to kind of process because they are aware that they know they can't throw it away because they already brought it curbside and there's a green sticker sitting on it that they won't, the hauler won't take. So that's a good opportunity. As far as a not-for-profit, what businesses will pay us for is we will look into asset management of hard drive sanitation. I think that's the only really commodity that we're able to process with businesses as far as a kind of a sellable revenue generator for the organization.
Excellent. All right. Gloria, did you want to flip to the next question? So this would be for everyone. As new electronic devices are coming into use by residents, e-cigarettes, smart home devices, the single-use Bluetooth speakers and other products, do you see the existing state law expanding to include the recycling of these items to cover the cost? Because it's currently my understanding that these don't have value. Now, I welcome all of you to give your perspectives. I'm going to start with Jessica, since I haven't been able to start with Jessica for a little while, and she can give the state perspective on the law as it stands right now.
Sure. So we are currently under CERA, which does have the 17 CEDs listed. So we work within CERA, and we are always becoming aware of new devices, whether it be, VR headsets, digital photo frames, 3D printers, things like that. We are becoming aware of these new devices. Manufacturers will reach out to us about these devices. And therefore, we look at the device and we also look at the intent and the definitions in the law. If these products fit under CERA and fit within the definitional framework, we definitely try to incorporate those and get those recycled. As far as things like e-cigarettes go, this has been a big topic coming up in multiple states. And we did create, through one of our interns, we got a fact sheet created on e-cigs. And if IRA is interested in posting that or anyone wants access to that, I can definitely send that out.
Thank you. That would be wonderful. And then certainly, I think we could add that to our website at IRA, I'm sure. So with that, I'm going to go back to Luke. Would you like to give your perspective on the strange items now, I guess?
Yeah, I'll try, Marta. From the e-cigarette standpoint, I'll have to just, rely on Jessica and make sure I'm following the rules of what the state rules are. If we, encounter, I have not encountered any of that type of material currently. Speakers wise, we've run into a few, and it seemed like it wasn't so much the speaker was bad, it was the component of the speaker, the cord, where they said, oh, something was wrong. And so again, to educate myself on this, I would have to go with the state laws and go to the manufacturers. Are they going to give money to us recyclers? And Marta, I think you would be able to speak on this as well, of saying, okay, yes, we're going to get money here to recycle these units. And with Jimmy as well, he's probably really educated on this as well, where you're going to find that money to recycle those things accordingly. And I hope this doesn't happen, but Jimmy could probably talk on the residential side, where they probably will just throw it in a garbage bag and no one's really going to ever find it. Unfortunately, that's where we're going to live, is because it's not a huge thing. So garbage man doesn't go through. So all they're going to do is dump it in the garbage bag. And I think that's, for me, if I had to say something, that's where I see that going.
And certainly, to Jessica's point, some of these are not currently banned, so it's not illegal for anyone to throw them into the garbage.
Right.
I'll switch to Jimmy next. Jimmy, I know dealing with a lot of our residential stuff, I know you're getting some of these things. So how are you handling that, or how would you view that in the future changing?
As far as, like you said, they're not banned items. A lot of these smaller electronic devices, people don't even think about recycling them. Specifically, e-cigarettes would be huge. We do not see a lot of e-cigarettes, but a lot of the, as most of you might know, e-cigarettes either have a internal built-in battery or a removable battery. A lot of times that's a lithium battery or other type of rechargeable. And the fact that we don't see them, they're not a banned item that much, and there's so many that are gone through on a regular basis. They are becoming part of the waste stream, along with Bluetooth speakers as well. Pretty much anything is a Bluetooth speaker now, or can be. And those types of consumer devices are becoming more and more predominant in the waste stream in quantity, because they don't weigh much. And I think that it's going to be a continued developing problem as we move forward.
Okay. And then last, I just want to switch over to Greg and get your perspective on some of these items. Do you receive any of them, get questions about them, refurbish any of them?
Yeah, we definitely don't refurbish any of those items. I think as product development, to meet consumers' demands of what is the latest, the greatest, the newest, the law just kind of caught up to TV is a TV. Yes, it's changed in different forms, but as they bring in new technology and things are created for technology purposes, look at e-learning, look at all the different type of components it takes to e-learn. Okay, I need a camera. Now the cameras, if we recycle the cameras, the speakers, all the things that are attached with it, I just think as technology evolves, the law and litigation around that has to have the flexibility and the ability to incorporate and add additional components. And then the other aspect is educating the consumers as far as what they should be, what's recyclable, and how to go about doing it. So I think the list just needs to get longer as far as what items people receive at site locations for recycling.
Thank you. And Gloria, did you want to flip on to the next slide? So do you believe that residents or businesses hide the smaller electronic devices in the garbage rather than bring them to a collection site? I think we've kind of touched on that a little bit, that I think each of you have already kind of managed to get that in. From your perspective, is it fair that the manufacturers are profiting from some of the short-term electronic devices? They don't have long shelf lives. They're passing the cost on to businesses and schools, governments and nonprofits to pay for some of those devices. They only share currently in the residential. And I ask this because in this particular issue, there are a couple of states that actually do ask the manufacturers to share in covering either the school electronics or to cover in business as well as school and government. So personally speaking, I get a lot of calls from churches. So at this point, I guess I would start with Luke, because I don't think I've started with you for a while, Luke.
Just to talk about this question a little bit, again, from the residential side, I think there are more electronics that are smaller from the residential side from a business side, right? You know, probably the littlest things that a business they're going to use are going to probably give out cell phones or maybe some iPads, you know, to their employees or stuff. But when you get into the residential side, I personally think they're going to hide them more in the garbage than, you know, and I just say that just because, again, not educated on that, but I would say that there would be more of the residential side putting like small electronics in a garbage bag. I mean, the garbage bag is black, you're not going to see it, you know, they're going to hide it more than a business. But trust me, there's a lot of businesses that try to dump electronics as well. So it's kind of contradicting of what I'm saying as well, what I just said there. But I've been, like I said, from the previous questions, I've been in dumpsters getting out from businesses. And on top of it, they have the asset tags right on their computers or whatever they've thrown out. So their business name is right on there. So I don't understand that either. So it gets a little bit there as well. From the manufacturers, I've worked with businesses and schools in the past where you know, some of those manufacturers do pass it on to the school, and where they offset that is saying, oh, okay, well, you could buy our new computers. Well, we'll offset that cost, right? So then when we come in and say to the schools and the businesses, hey, we'll buy it from you, they're very happy because there is a cost involved. And if they didn't want to use that particular manufacturer like Dell, maybe they wanted to go to IBM or something like that, I've helped them out in many ways of that at that point.
That's good to hear. All right. And I'm going to switch over to Greg, if you'd like to take your perspective on this.
I think manufacturers generate upgrades to devices as the consumers demand them. What our agency as a not-for-profit, we don't have the financial resources to absorb costs for processing items. So it's very unfortunate if those costs are kind of filtered onto whether it be schools or not-for-profits. There has to be some liability regarding what they created and how they're going to properly dispose of it. Since we're able to, you know, kind of from a small budget, we can't take in things that are going to cost us to process the right way. So that's, again, definitely referral onto different sites that actual process items. I think residentially, I know a number of municipalities have embedded costs into water and sewer bills for residents. You can call and schedule a pickup, call an 800 number, and they'll come curbside and come to the house and pick it up as often as needed. So I think if there's things being hidden, that means people don't know they should be recycling. So for those towns that have that service, that'd be great opportunity. For other towns that don't have a curbside pickup, or they don't know what they need to do with the item, again, education referral to the website so they can ask questions.
Okay. And Jimmy, did you want a shot at this one?
He's muted.
Oh, couldn't unmute you. As far as the first question, we have found that to be the case in rural or underserved areas where a permanent collection site is not within close range, as well as when there are disposal fees for recycling, such for items such as like TVs. When in some locations, when residents are charged for televisions and they have multiple, they'll usually, we've seen, pay for the larger one, but if they have 2 or 3 smaller ones, we'll find we're being told sometimes that they'd rather toss those in the trash than either drive them to a collection site or pay for them to be recycled. From our perspective, as far as passing the costs along, someone's always going to foot the bill. Whether manufacturers pass it on to consumers on the front end, or try to pass it on to processors on the back end, there should be more of a proactive plan for those devices being recycled from the start than more of a reactive response to these devices entering the material stream.
Like a circular economy approach. Wow. That would be wonderful. Jessica, did you have any perspective on this? I know I'm kind of putting you in a difficult position to talk about whether we would want to expand the law, but any thoughts you'd like to add?
Sure. So obviously, any CEDs covered under the law, they're obviously illegal to be going to landfill. Historically, things like entities like businesses, schools, nonprofits have not been in the legislation. A few differing reasons. You know, businesses and schools, they may have different items from residential. I mean, think about how big some of these Xerox printers are. So they could have large items, and not only that, the quantity of items, they could have 20, 30, 40, etc., computer monitors, things like that. So they have differing products, which, as mentioned, would be much more difficult to hide in the trash, and they could have large amounts of items. As far as items going to the trash, anything would be pure speculation. I'm obviously, some that are, you know, taking these dumpsters may find that I'm not in the position where I really see dumpsters or anything. So what I would have would just be pure speculation, and it wouldn't be based on any numbers that I would have. So to that end, I can't really speak on as far as what would be ending up in the landfill.
Okay. Do you just, as a follow-up, do you get reports if a concerned employee saw that their employer was throwing things in the dumpster they knew shouldn't be? Would you get that kind of a complaint?
Yeah, Marta, that's a really good thing to bring up. We have had people that have called in and say, I work for this company. Obviously, they, you know, are kept anonymous, but they may work for a company, or they may see a company throwing electronics away. They will contact us, and we will forward that to our field office staff, and they will go investigate that or pass it on to the county or location that is occurring in.
Excellent. Thank you. Gloria, I think we have one more, right? So I know a lot of folks want to know about the COVID impact, and certainly it is important to talk about. I did keep it for last because I'm hoping, at least from my perspective, that this is going to be a 2020 issue, and by 2021, we won't have this to talk about anymore. But for the sake, obviously, of all of us involved, I do think we need to talk about how has it been impacting both the residential and the business programs across the state. And I'm gonna let Jimmy start off on that one.
Okay. Okay. As far as impact, what we've seen, at least initially, we've seen a huge increase in demand for refurbished products since middle of March. Typically, the resale market becomes flooded with material from April through August, especially in the Midwest and East Coast states. Most large residential collections take place during the spring and summer, while most schools and universities conduct their turnovers during the summer months. We expect that budgets will change. Businesses may allocate funds to other areas instead of technology in order to withstand the crisis, if they can even reopen at this point. Rising unemployment and the economy in recession will have less residents replacing old devices. while institutions may hang on to or repurpose devices previously scheduled for refresh, resulting in less material entering the market. Recycling firms will be dealing with a change to their inbound material mix, with less high revenue generating material, and retail stores that sell used electronics may close due to the lack of supply or lack of foot traffic because of COVID-19. Still kind of in the mix of it. Don't know which way this is going to go, but we definitely are expecting some big swings in both supply and demand throughout at least the rest of 2020.
Thanks. And I noticed I had wanted to switch to the next slide for Jessica, who both Jimmy and Jessica had some slides on this, so I apologize. So you'll see it's a little out of order, but if you could, Gloria, switch to Jessica's slide and she can talk about how it's been affecting the residential program statewide.
Okay, yeah, so we've definitely seen impacts from COVID. I would just like to state that electronics recycling, it is considered essential right now. These entities that collect or recycle, they're allowed to be open, but again, they're not compelled to operate. At the end of the day, local health departments and business owners, you know, they have the ability to make the call if they're comfortable or not operating under current conditions. We've had a lot of changes to sites and events. Many sites are currently shut down. I think a couple, to my knowledge, have opened up. Obviously, they are implementing some guidelines in place that they have told me about. But the events scheduled back in April, this month in May, upcoming in June, they've either been canceled or postponed. Again, summer events are facing cancellation or postponement. There are some alternate options for residents. They can bring their electronics directly to the recycler. For example, eWorks, I believe they're in DuPage County. Residents can bring their electronics directly to them, even though DuPage County may not have all their collection sites open. Same with Com2, that's located up in Cook County. But again, the issue becomes distance to recycler. Not everybody has access to be able to travel to a recycler that's nearby to them. They can also use private businesses that may be open during this time. But really in the meantime, and to that end as well, retailers like Best Buy, they are also not accepting e-waste at this time. So there's very limited outlets for electronics currently. So residents really should be just holding on to their devices until they can be brought to a proper outlet. Obviously, we don't want those going to landfill, so they should be held on until outlets start opening. As far as moving forward, group plans and recyclers, they are working with counties to help reschedule events. There's going to be a very short window of time possibly for these events to take place. You know, we're already in May. We may only be able to do events into October, maybe November, depending on the weather. So there are going to be a lot of counties possibly vying for events within the same weekend. And then there's also the logistics of ensuring when these sites or collection events reopen, that proper logistics are being taken to, you know, practice social distancing. And I know a few people have asked in the chat as far as we want to get our collection sites back up, what are the guidelines? I would say to follow state and CDC guidelines, but we can definitely look into creating a fact sheet where we can synthesize the information together in one page that will make it easier for counties. Now that I see that there's kind of a need for this, I can definitely, you know, fix something up for you guys.
Thanks, Jessica. That's wonderful. And now this is Jimmy, what Jimmy was addressing. And so certainly for reference sake, I would encourage everybody to take a look at this. But since he's already spoken, my mistake, I'd like to give Luke a chance to address this, and then we'll go to Greg.
Yeah, so just answering the question there, laptops are in a huge demand right now, obviously, from a single-use device. You don't have to have a monitor, you don't have to have anything. So, I mean, if I had 1 million probably laptops currently right now, I'd be able to refurbish 1 million and sell 1 million. So, or donate 1 million, however that would fit the school's needs. again, how I see it right now for me, businesses, it has gone down quite substantial because of, I deal in the spectrum of the business side, right? So a lot of people are working from home. But my theory on that, I'm hoping that it continues because, I mean, if the computer goes bad, they're not attacked, they're going to give it back. There's always going to be an IT staff, so the stuff has to go somewhere, right? So it's always going to go back to the company's going to give a new one, so on and so forth. I still see that going pretty well as that, but I'm affected by it because no one being into the office or things of that nature, because there's a lot of people, oh, we got to get rid of this, we got to get rid of this. They're not seeing that right now because they're not even there.
Okay, thanks. No, that's good. That's positive.
Yes.
Positive, good. So, and then Greg, did you want to give your perspective as far as you see
Sure.
the impact of COVID on you?
I definitely agree with all of the panelists' comments on the effects of the pandemic. As a refurbisher distributing computers to specific population of special education students, Jimmy, as you mentioned, since March 12th, as the schools changed the technology platform from face-to-face instruction to e-learning, I think we are tracking. To date, we have received over 319 requests for school technology for at-home learners. We were able to deliver, meeting the technology challenge by donating, I think it was 1,900 pieces of technology in the form of a desktop, a laptop, an iPad, a Chromebook, all around the state. This pandemic brought to light the digital divide, that people don't have it and they need it. And as I think this continues, the platform for at-home learning is going to continue for a while. We're in week 12, 13 of students being at home. So I hope they have figured out some form of technology. A lot of everything what's happened with this is now the parents, the grandparents are now the educators. So the paradigm needs to be flipped a little bit. A lot needs to go into educating the parents, the grandparents, on how to use the technology to access it, do a Zoom call, telehelp, all the different things that schools now are requesting for the students to meet general education requirements. So we're definitely in touch with the State Board of Education regarding review of the student learning technology needs. And as Jimmy has mentioned, a large portion of our donations are coming from schools, universities, businesses, and as people have not yet returned to work, I don't know if recycling will be on the top list of priorities as they finally get there, regarding a refresh or what obsolete equipment do we need to get rid of or can we refurbish. So even as phase 3, with the hope that phase 3 for the state, we're going to be opening up a little bit. I think it's going to take quite a while to get in full swing for us to start receiving in the donations. You know, we've had a number of schools requesting, are we picking up? And then what's the protocol for us to enter in a somewhat sterile environment? So, okay, bring everything out to the parking lot and leave it there. You know, so a lot of kind of logistics, kind of coordination. As the schools figure it out, as teams need to get back into businesses. But again, just the uncertainty of how we approach that. So that's kind of how this COVID-19 has kind of affected us as a refurbisher.
Just trying to, you know.
Thank you. No, that's very insightful as well. We're going to open it up for everybody. I would ask everybody to please mute.
That whole thing.
No,
No,
to mute everybody again, and then we'll just unmute if you're speaking.
It's you.
I think we have somebody who's unaware that they're unmuted.
Yeah.
But we had a number of questions.
Okay. So
I
Martha.
think that's Mindy. Mindy, you're unmuted.
She isn't now. She's fine. Okay.
Marta, you're muted now. Marta, you're talking, we can't hear you.
All of you, as you move forward through this, what practices do you think that they could adopt that would somehow enhance moving forward our ability to handle these items. And I'll start with Luke. How about you? I'll throw you on the spot.
How are we going to handle the items? I mean, is that the question,
Well,
Mara?
if you could tell the manufacturers to do anything, if you could ask them, say, would you please do this one thing? What would that one thing be that they could do that would make life easier as you're taking these things from folks?
The one thing, again, I hate to say this like this and being so generic, okay? I don't want to be like, sound like generic answer here, but it is help pay for the cost, especially with the COVID and what we're going through currently right now. You know, work with us. Like for me, I just want to refurbish it, put it back into use, because I really think that's the biggest thing here. So I would have to say is just figure out to make sure we're doing it A, the appropriate way, and B, just the cost of it. I know that's very generic, but right now, I mean, where is our economy going to go from right now? We need some help.
Okay. And Greg, did you want to take that one on? You're involved in refurbishing these items. What would you think is the best thing the manufacturers could do? If it was one thing that would make your ability to work with these things in their secondary lives better?
If we have the ability to refurbish and redeploy, because there is a lot of things aren't end use. There's still life left. Maybe end use because it's not the latest and greatest and the newest and the best and the fastest. However, just from this experience, outdated equipment, a Chromebook that's only 3 years old still is a very highly sought after piece of technology. That's like some to the manufacturers, I'd say. Give us the opportunity to learn how to process, support it with dollars, and you know, give us the financial resources to continue to have consumers do the right thing.
And Jimmy, did you want to take that one too?
Might have touched on this a little bit, but the ability to remarket devices is very important to the industry. So the more manufacturers go after like one-time use or non-repairable devices, the more it's going to cost to recycle other devices that would not be remarkable in the first place. So the more time and effort they put into not being able to refurbish certain devices, the more costs that recyclers such as myself are going to incur, which is going to drive the cost of recycling up for them as well. So.
And Jessica, did you have anything you wanted to add on that? You're muted, Jessica.
Sorry. I was just going to say, I don't really have too much to add. I do definitely hear people talking about refurbishing, and I definitely understand that.
And just based on the chat, I know that some people are looking forward to seeing more information, and Jessica's been very forthcoming, and she's going to try and provide some information there. Did you want to address any of those things that you were saying on the chat, Jessica?
Yeah, sure. So just going through some of these questions, like for example, Will asked what was considered commercial entities, just so everyone knows. That includes things like businesses, schools, nonprofits. Those are not covered under CERA because they're not considered residential. And then we did have some requests for the e-cig or vaping fact sheet that we have. I can get that sent out. And a lot of people looking to want to open their collection sites or events, and just thinking what do we need to be doing to safely open these? And I can definitely pull together some information on that.
If it's of any value, I will say that one of the reasons that Will County was able to keep our sites open throughout the entire process is we touched base with our health department in early March. We went over a variety of different events that we had coming up and what safety procedures we could do. We had posted on our social media and on our website a photo of a person using a drop-off, showing their license through their window, only talking to staff with the window cracked open. And that went very well, just that image and getting that out to people. I'm not going to say, and Jimmy can speak to this, that we got 100% of people to comply with staying in their car and crack open if necessary. But we certainly did make a huge stride in it, and we're even able to open a brand new site during all of this. So Jimmy, did you want to touch on that as a safety precautions, and maybe even talk about what safety precautions each of you, Greg and Jimmy and Luke, that you've had to do during this process as well as for your own employees?
So here at A-Team, we've implemented a lot of cleaning procedures as far as the vehicles go. We provide hand sanitizer in the trucks now. All of our employees are wearing masks. They're the biggest impact with working with residential collections has always been, even before the crisis, is people getting out of the cars, which can slow down your unloading at the events. But now our team is is stressing profusely to stay in the cars for both their safety and the workers' safety, because we find that even with the face covering requirement, that a lot of people aren't wearing them as they come through the event. So the best impact that we can have as far as safety goes is to keep them in their cars during the collection, and to really stress that.
Excellent. Luke, did you want to go
Sure.
next?
So we've definitely implemented, hey, listen, if you don't feel good, I don't care what it is, stay home. Number one. Okay, just know yourself. You know, if you're not feeling good, you know, especially with what's going on, you don't know what it is, please stay home. So we've implemented the same thing with Jimmy. We have 3 trucks. They all have sanitizer. We supply the masks to make sure that they're involved in, you know, making sure that they have that on. And we even go from the aspect of what does the other business, if we've done a few pickups since all this has gone on, and we've asked, what can we do for your business? So when we're coming in, collecting the computers, getting all that, you know, let them tell us what they would be, so they're understanding, hey, you guys are taking our precautionary steps as well. So that's what we're doing.
Great, thanks. And Greg?
Sure, we're similar procedures, following guidelines from CDC, Department of Human Services. As a not-for-profit social service agency serving, again, over 800 individuals with severe to profound intellectual disabilities, they're all in residential homes. So our agency is definitely aware of how to maintain social distancing, the masks, the sanitizer, the gloves. As far as people coming to our site locations, no touch policy or no contact policy. You request a laptop, you're picking it up, there's the cart, sign the form, there's no interaction. So we just need a lot of, again, logistics and communication. People, yes, they want to interact, they want to talk about either their donation they're making, because, you know, people do like to talk about their older computer electronics, or information about the new device they're just receiving. So again, a lot of that is through, they're in the car, windows up, I'm talking to them on the cell phone, you know, again. So again, minimal contact interaction, obviously. There are buildings as essential workers, all of our direct service staff, gloves, masks, temperatures, you know, again, just following the protocol that all of us are.
Excellent. Well, we're getting close to the end of our time. So if anyone has questions following this, they'd like to submit them to the Illinois Recycling Association. We'll see if we can get any additional information. Gloria is diligently recording this. We're going to get a link to it. So if you missed something, you want to re-see this later, it should be available shortly. And I want to thank everybody for coming out today, and remind everybody to join the Illinois Recycling Association We've been around for almost 40 years. We're still strong, and we would love everybody to be involved so that all of us together are the strongest voice for recycling in the state of Illinois.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marta.
Thank you.
Thanks, Martha.
Pleasure.